What's up, everybody? We are back. We're talking about Apples Never Fall, which is the newest thriller mystery drama series on Peacock. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
Hello.
And we are Culture Wave. We're here to talk to you guys about this show that Peacock is trying to capitalize sort of on this interesting time where there's a lot of these mysterious sort of lavish settings and try to treat them like character studies, but I don't know if we were totally enamored with Apples Never Fall the way that maybe other things like Big Little Lies were hitting. How did you feel about the show?
I had really high expectations for it, especially after this being like the next kind of big book that hit for the writer of the original book of Big Little Lies. And I was very disappointed with this show. I think the story was a little all over the place. The script for me was not suspenseful enough. I personally enjoyed the acting. I know you might have a different opinion, but I think that the story just fell really flat for a suspense.
Yeah, I thought some of the acting was good. I was also disappointed for the fact that I kind of like the way that Peacock is set up as from a user interface sort of standpoint. I like the way that they structure their service, and I was hoping that this could be like the first prestige sort of drama that they were going to get.
I know, I did too.
And I remember writing about this for the first time on the blog when they got Annette Bening, and I was like, Annette Bening is like legit. Like, yeah. She's never done TV before. Like,
she's also, in my opinion, kind of picky with what she does. Like, she's not just out there being like, I'll take whatever I can get right now.
Exactly. And so the thing is, it's a novel from Liane Moriarty, who also wrote Big Little Lies, is a big time mystery novelist. So the property was ripe, and there's definitely a lot of fans of the novel. And I do think that's where a lot of the criticism is coming in, because they do make some pretty stringent changes from the novel to the screen adaptation. But yeah, I do want to talk about the acting for a minute, because so Annette Bening is not the only like big name. She's probably the biggest name attached, but Alison Brie is also in the show. Jake Lacy is in the show, and Sam Neill are like the big ones. And then the other two siblings actually in the show are kind of like unknowns. They haven't done a lot of stuff, which I did like that approach, how they kind of were mixing different sort of acting styles. But I do think sometimes it shows a bit.
I agree.
I did think Annette was the strongest, and I wish we got to see more of her character. But again, so much of the mystery is sort of in her character, Joy, and where she disappears.
She's missing.
Sam Neill is somebody that I've always really enjoyed. I mean, everybody knows him obviously from Jurassic Park, but I thought him as a villain in Peaky Blinders 2 was really great. So I always like when he shows up. Jake Lacy plays a prick unlike anybody in Hollywood right now. Like, and this is now his second show on Peacock. He also did that show. I don't know if you saw it. It was A Friend of the Family. It was like a scripted version of a real life true crime thing where he was like a creepy neighbor. The doc is insane. Like one of the craziest documentaries I've ever seen. But and then Alison Brie, who I know we both really like.
I love Alison Brie.
Yeah, so I thought she was good in it. I thought Annette was the strongest, but she's also a multiple time Oscar nominated actress. But the writing is kind of weird, because the show is watchable for sure. I think it's entertaining enough to keep your attention. And I felt that at the end of every episode, not in the very beginning, the first two episodes actually, if you don't know this, like for the audience, I'm like very much in tune with the 3-episode rule. It's like, if you don't get me on 3 episodes, like I'm out. And obviously we were going to review this whole series anyway. But it wasn't until like the tail end of 3 that got me hooked. Yeah. So I was kind of already like, oh, I don't know if this is.
Well, the tone was weird on the first episode. I was kind of like.
The first episode is the worst, which is also not great, because there's not a lot of people like us that'll dedicate 7 hours to something in less than a week to talk about it with you guys, because some people are just like, oh, like here's this new show with Annette Bening. Let's turn it on. Let's see what we like. And if they don't like it within one episode, they're like, there's literally thousands of other choices that we can make. And that's part of the problem. And there's actually, I wanted to talk about this really quick. On Rotten Tomatoes, one of my favorite critics, Alan Sepinwall, he's from Rolling Stone, he talks about this, and this is what I'm worried about with the state of TV.
Okay.
And he says, there was a moment in television where a miniseries with this cast based on a book by an author like Moriarty would have been a very big deal. And instead, it's yet another unremarkable miniseries in a period that's about to be flooded with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Like, so much of the television landscape has now been on just getting out as much as possible.
And as fast as possible.
That's
what it is, because the book came out in 2021. That is not a lot of time to adapt it to screen, get a cast, get a good script, and get financing for it, and then also produce, edit, post, and put out. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And especially after the strike, because they ended up getting shut down a little bit during production.
Yeah, they got shut down the first. Well, they actually kept going during the writer strike. So the writer, the main writer and the showrunner of the series is Melanie Marnich, who's also worked on The Affair. She's worked on The OA, A Murder at the End of the World, which is like another limited series that I heard good things about, but it gets lost in all these other things. My big thing with this, and I agree with you, piggybacking off of like trying to capitalize quickly. So much of the studios, I feel, are getting into this mode of like IP, and they need to take something that's already popular and try to capitalize on the value of that instead of the sort of lean towards original ideas. And you can see it, obviously, and though they're both great films in their own right, like Oppenheimer and Barbie capitalizing off of one another, because Oppenheimer really kind of capitalized a lot on what Barbie had going for it, and they made that a thing. But Barbie, like, even a pro-feminist sort of movie that's so inventive and original doesn't make that money, obviously, if Barbie is not in the title, right?
Yeah.
Things like this, again, Liane Moriarty is such a name recognition, and her stock jumps when they adapt something like Big Little Lies, which was... The first season was so big for HBO, and they fully went in with the intents and purposes of it being a limited series, that the numbers did so well that they were like, we need to do a season 2, and we need to get Meryl Streep. And now they're like, oh, we're probably going to do a season 3. And it's flooding sort of the television market and everybody's eyeballs, which I think is a problem, because I agree with what Alan was saying here. It's like the talent attached and the presence that book has, that a lot of people really enjoy the novel. And for this to be the reception, like right now on Rotten Tomatoes, the show from critics has a 42% and a 46% from audiences.
It's low.
So it's low.
It's very low. I think, again, honestly, I just think that it was the writing and the script. There were points when I was watching it that I just felt like I was watching a Lifetime movie, and that they weren't trying to make it an interesting script. They were just trying to give you the points that happened in the book and make it as slow as possible. This TV show could have been a film. 100%. I fully believe it. There were moments that there was no suspense. There was no movement happening. They were just kind of dragging along and giving way too much backstory on the other characters. And I think that if they had pushed this into an under 2-hour movie, it would have had so much more movement going on, and it could have just focused more on the themes that I've seen take place in the book, which is marriage and family rivalries. And I know that they focused a lot on like the family aspect, but I felt like it kind of was just beating a dead horse at a certain point.
Yeah, at one point it started to feel sort of bland, and like you were kind of going over the same exact things from a different perspective.
And I don't know why. Like they kept doing that.
I do think it's interesting that they decided to take it in the way that the Delaney family is six members of the family. So I've already named a lot of the cast members, but I'll go through their names really quick. So Joy and Stan are the matriarch and patriarch, played by Bening and Neill. Then you have Troy Delaney, which is the oldest. He's Jake Lacy's character. And then it breaks down from there as Amy Delaney, which is Alison Brie, Logan Delaney, which is Conor Merigan Turner, and Brooke Delaney, which is played by Essie Randles. And for the people that don't know the story, basically what happens is they're a family that comes from this, basically a tennis legacy, the country club vibe. That's very much what this is. Purebred white people bullshit. And there is a woman that shows up at Joy and Stan's doorstep who is kind of in a panic. She's very frantic. She said that she was getting abused by her boyfriend, and she jumped out of the car and just ran to the house that had the most lights on. Her name is Savannah Pagonis. She's played by Georgia Flood in this show. And basically when Savannah comes into their lives, a bunch of things go wrong and a lot of people kind of go astray and things are very chaotic, and a lot of the drama that's been building and baking over the years that they've sort of tiptoed and skirted around and shared secrets with each other separately starts to come to the surface.
Which, that description right there, if I was listening and had no idea, sounds very interesting to me.
You're welcome.
That to me sounds like, ooh, okay, mysterious. A lot's going to unfold. I think the way that they edited and chose to unfold the story for us was just so annoying. And they kept going back and forth from present to past time and in not a cohesive way. They should have shown us kind of like the ending at the beginning and then started from the beginning right away of how they got to that point, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I do think that the way that you had said to me, the way that the novel ends, if you start with the ending of the novel, the real true ending of the novel in the beginning of the show, it captures your attention a lot more. Like I watched, so full transparency, I watched the first episode with my mom because she's also a big fan of Annette Bening, and she's like, okay, like I'm down to watch her in a show. And after the first episode, she like wasn't hooked.
Wasn't into it.
And so we only watched one that one day, and then I kind of binged a lot of the rest of it. I watched 2, 3, and 4 in one sitting, and then 5, 6, and 7 in another. Which I did think benefited my viewing experience. I think I said it in this episode, or I don't know if I said it off screen, but I did feel like towards the middle of the show, the endings that bled into the beginnings of the next episode were kind of what kept me engaged. But a lot of the substance within the episodes wasn't enough to keep me like being like
from
on
not
the edge
picking up
of
your
my
phone.
seat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the writing was weird. The structure was weird. You just brought up the fact that they went from the then and now, and it's weird because it's not a crazy passage of time. The then is 7 months prior to the now that there is taking place, which I think there unfortunately are a lot of people in society that are going to be trying to multitask, and they're going to be doing this while they're watching the show. And if you do something like that, you might not even realize that you
miss the then.
Yes.
You miss the now. You miss the little note that just popped up for a second. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what are we doing right now? Yeah. Where are we?
I agree.
But I wonder, I haven't read the book, but I do wonder, because I know that this, when they are flipping time periods in a book, they'll often do one chapter is then, the next chapter is now. So I wonder if the book was structured that way and they chose to use it.
That'd be a way better way. But again, there's so much more room to breathe in the book.
I know.
It feels like. So that's the thing. I don't know if it probably still would have worked as a movie. I do think that.
They needed to completely restructure it though and not do flip-flop. They have to go in consecutive order if they were to do a film this way.
Probably. I do think so much of it now too is that, at least from what I've seen in a lot of interviews, like a lot of people ask when actors, now it's just I think becoming an exhausting question, but they'll ask actors, they're like, what made you like pivot to television? They're like, well, the interesting stories have moved from film to TV, which, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit on other podcasts before, but the way that film is going and the trend of which movies are now getting less and less released in theaters and even on streaming, like Netflix was doing hundreds of movies and now they're cutting back dramatically because they're not seeing the pull that they want from all of their films, which makes sense. But it's left the television market oversaturated with these things that are going to get lost in the shuffle. Like Apples Never Fall is something that should have been a prestige play for Peacock. It could have led to awards consideration for some of these actors. And instead, I think it's going to be one of those series, again, that kind of just gets thrown by the wayside. There are even shows for other streamers that still get the awards consideration. But like, I think of something, this is just a random one, but I think of like that show, Welcome to Chippendales, that came out. Like that was supposed to be a big one. It covered a real life event. It was a big storyline. It had Kumail Nanjiani. It had Juliette Lewis. It had Murray Bartlett coming off of White Lotus. Like so much behind it. And like, you forget about some of these streaming shows because the market is so oversaturated and there's so many other things that people like to watch. Like I'm a big sports fan. Like it's March Madness right now. Like that consumes eyeballs. So you need to have something that is so substantial at this point that you're going to be able to capture the audience and keep them engaged for 7 whole episodes with this family, and I unfortunately don't think that this show really hit the mark on that.
I think the reason, though, is because they didn't have anything new to say, in my opinion. We've seen this storyline before of a wealthy, all-white family all of a sudden getting into, like, not legal trouble, but starting to have their world fall apart. And I think other shows just do it much better. White Lotus, Big Little Lies, they actually are trying to say something to their audience. They're not just trying to tell a story. Because I think of a show that really was successful this past year for like limited series is Beef. And Beef was because nobody's seen anything like that before, like come out of any writers right now.
And I have to be honest with you. No, I've only seen the first season of Big Little Lies, and I did enjoy it. It's not like something that I look back at and I put it in the same consideration as certain things like Succession, and it's a limited series, but it's not one that I look back at and I love it as much as some other people. Beef and the White Lotus are original, and that's a big part that I think, again, gets lost in the trend that's happening. It's like so much of what Mike White was able to do with White Lotus, and so much of what Lee Seung-jin was able to do with Beef, is that they focus on character, or like you've talked about with Beef, it's like taking this little nugget of something that everyone can relate to and breaking it out into this incredible, insane story, right? This story is not made for everyone. It's
no,
not.
They're very unrelatable people.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that the actors are really trying their hardest to make them not maybe relatable, but empathetic.
I think that's why Bening actually does the best job, because I think she portrays this legitimate circumstance that happens sometimes with matriarchs of these bigger families, where they start to feel like a little fish in a big pond. Like, she's looking out at the world. She's finding like her husband is now retired. All her kids are older. None of them have children. None of them are married. So you would think like, oh, like, why isn't my family spending time with me? And it is kind of, I mean, it is sad that like so much of what she goes through is she's like, I'm just trying to reach out to my kids and get something out of it. Yeah. And she gets nothing. And I think she, even with the limited screen time she has, because she's probably in the show the least, which is crazy because she's kind of the headliner. I think she's able to do the most because she resembles something that other women can relate to and is definitely legitimate. And even in what you see towards the end, I don't want to spoil it, but what you see towards the end with her character, that is even something that's very relatable when like someone sort of just snaps. So, like, I'm just going to do something that's very uncharacteristic of me. Like, that's real. Like,
well, she's trying. There's plot points that are definitely like, you get taken out where you're like, this is not realistic at all.
Can you talk about that? Because I think that's a big part of it too, that has us sort of teetering more on the negative side of the show than the positive, because there are things that are just so out of left field and just don't really make sense structurally.
Well, it felt like I was watching a horror movie of don't run into the basement where the killer is half the time. I was like, why are we doing this? No real person would be doing this. And really, without giving spoilers away, it's about, okay, if some random person you have never met before is bleeding and saying that they were just in a domestic dispute and they just ran to their first house that had lights on and you've never met this person before, you're calling the police. Immediately, no questions asked. It's not because you don't know who they are, but it's like, you can't help this person because you don't know who they are, so you're going to call the police. They don't call the police. She says, no, don't call the police. Okay, no problem.
I thought it was crazy that they asked her. They said, would you, like, I think we should call the police, right? We should call the police.
And she goes, no, don't call the police.
And they go, I would have been like, okay, no. I'm definitely calling the cops.
I'm definitely calling the cops if you tell me not to call the police.
This is crazy.
That's crazy.
And that's another part of the reason I think the first episode might lose a lot of people, because so much of it is so unrealistic.
Well, it's it's wanting the audience to just blindly go with it and be like, okay, well, we'll just see what happens with this. And then on top of it, they don't call the police. And then 4 hours later, she's inviting this girl to stay with them.
It's crazy.
Right off the bat,
it's a crazy premise to go from. Yeah.
The core start of this story is unbelievable. which then I think pushes a lot of people off from wanting to see how the story continues, because they're like, if I can't believe the start of this story, how am I going to believe the ending of it?
Yeah, and I think tonally the show wants to be a lot of different things, and because it doesn't pick one solid lane, it's hard to really know where you're at. Like, there are actually, I mean, it's slight, but there are moments of comedy between the siblings that happen, but I would say so much of it is trying to decide whether they're going to go full tilt on it being like a legitimate kind of
thriller
mystery, excuse me, or like more of a family drama. And I don't know what it, I don't know if
which would you have preferred if they
definitely a thriller. I wanted it, like the elements that started to add in more suspense and more tension definitely made the show feel more elevated to me. And again, I don't know, that could be a writing thing. It could be that the even the family drama stuff just wasn't great to me. And like you said, so many of the characters were like unlikable and unrelatable.
So
like
unlikable.
You didn't want to root for literally any of them. Like all of them were kinds of pieces of shit in their own right, which even in White Lotus, they kind of give you that perspective of majority of the characters have something wrong with them or something that they're dealing with. But even someone like Tanya in White Lotus is like so outlandish and so funny, and it's like, I know somebody that is exactly like that fucking woman. And the show does not do that at all. So it's tough. It's probably my first disappointment in terms of television all year. It's something that I was looking forward to.
It was on my top 10 list.
It was, right?
It was on. I don't
think it was on mine, or if it was towards the back end. But I was excited for this show.
I was too. And you know what I will say? I had no problem continue to watching it throughout each episode, even though it wasn't pulling me in completely, because I was hoping that the ending would just sweep me off my feet and it would be an incredible twist like I knew Big Little Lies had. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to hold out. This isn't a huge spoiler, but the ending is a letdown. And
it's
for me, it was a very big letdown.
It also was kind of abrupt. Like,
yeah, but also like
they had nowhere else to go with it.
They had nowhere else to go with it. And so it was obvious towards a certain point. You kind of were like, what else are they going to do with this story? Or unless they completely went off the rails with it and went a completely different way.
I thought the reaction to I want to, because again, I think we're so far in this doing non-spoiler now. I don't think we want to really give away spoilers because people might want to watch this.
People might want to watch it. We won't spoil it for people.
The reaction that Brooke has when she hears the recording, that reaction I loved. And I thought it was gonna. I agree, and that was the point where I was like, "Oh shit, okay, like
it's going down.
Yeah,
it's
really
going down now."
The fact that there was a bigger reaction in an episode 5, I forget if that's 5 or the penultimate episode, but there's that big of a reaction that hooks you and gets you like on the edge of my seat, legitimately, and then you get to the ending
of what actually happened on the tape,
and you're like, "This feels so like you just let the air out of a balloon."
Like, yeah, I was like, so nothing happened.
Yeah. Literally, that's kind of what happens.
So nothing happened.
Sam Neill has talked in an interview with IndieWire about how potentially they were asking if there would be a season 2. He said that they always interpreted it as being its own ending.
Good.
Hope we don't get a season 2. Again, there's an oversaturation of the television market. We don't need season 2s of shows that are disappointments, to be quite honest.
No. We don't even need season 2s of the best limited series ever. Let a limited series be a limited series, in my opinion.
I think it's a fair point.
I think it's a fair point, because stop dragging out these storylines. Let them be good in the beginning, and that's
just make a good show.
Just make a good show.
It's not a bad show. It's just not great, and it's something that I thought, like we both have already said again, it's disappointing. There was so much potential for it to be better. I am curious. If you ever read the book, let me know, because I'm not a reader.
I think I'm going to read it.
But I am curious on how the book compares to the television show.
Well, some things right off the bat that I was looking up just to get an idea of what the differences are is in the book it takes place in Australia, not America. So I think right there it already has like a culture change. And then some of the children, their storylines are different. Like Alison Brie's character is just older. She's not kind of searching for life. She already is like set in her ways a little bit more. That's interesting to me, because her character the whole time is just like trying to figure out what she wants to do. And then Jake Lacy's character I think they talk about it in the trailer, so it doesn't matter, but he's already past his divorce. He's not in the middle of a divorce. What else? The whole ending is different too. The final chapter they don't even touch in this television show. So that for me, you're leaving out an entire kernel of what wrapped up this story. I don't know.
Did we ever get a final ending with Savannah?
No.
So maybe that's what scares me.
Well, at this point we might be in spoilers, so
well that I'm saying that's what scares me about.
You think
yeah.
No, I hope they didn't leave it open, ended on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. I don't want to spoil it.
Oh my God. I didn't even think that.
Yeah,
I didn't even think that.
I just thought of it right now.
Don't. All
right, I'll take it away.
Oh my God. That'd be horrible.
Really quickly before we wrap up,
okay.
I wanted to talk to you about, so, I mean, again, people know or people are aware of who Annette Bening is, Sam Neill, Jake Lacy, Alison Brie. If you don't know them by name, you definitely know them by their face and their projects they've been in. The three sort of new talents in this, Conor Merigan Turner, who plays Logan, Essie Randles, who plays Brooke, and Georgia Flood, who plays Savannah. What were your thoughts on their performances? I was pretty impressed with Essie Randles as Brooke. I kind of want to see her do more. I think that she was a bit rangy at points. Like she had really high highs, but then some of her lows were just like, it felt like it was a little bit forced. But I was definitely more impressed with her than the other two, though I think the other two do serviceable work. But what did you think of the three performers?
No, I agree with you. I thought that the girl that plays Brooke, she probably out of the three was the most memorable performance for me. I think that she definitely knew who the character was and made it clear. I think that there's moments though that again she needed to make her character more likable, just so that we could relate to it more. I really did not like the girl that played Savannah. I did not like that role. I don't know if it's because you're not supposed to like her, but there was just something very, I don't know, if you're playing one of the, I don't know what word I'm looking for. If you're playing like a suspect kind of, or somebody that the audience is supposed to be weary about, I don't think you should show your hand too early on to make them like know that you're not a reliable person. And I think from the beginning it was like something's up with this girl.
So I felt similar
right away.
I was gonna make a comparison. I don't know if that's unfair to do, but
to what?
Like I think about Alison Oliver in Saltburn and how there was such an interesting allure about her character, and it's not the same.
No,
like,
it's not at all. Yeah,
but I'm saying there was something that you felt an unease about her, but then she acted it in a way that made it seem so much more believable that she could have been multifaceted and she could have had different sides. Because even Savannah, to an extent in this show, with Georgia's performance, you can believe, especially by the end, that like she does have some sort of neurotic care for Joy. It just doesn't come off in the way that I think she wanted it to.
Should have.
Yeah.
Came off very, I don't know. I just keep thinking of Lifetime with this whole TV show. I just keep thinking of it. And like this whole show for me just felt very a wannabe, I said this before, but a wannabe Gone Girl and Fatal Attraction. And it just didn't reach them.
Yeah. I can see it.
And then the guy that played Logan, I thought he was good. I mean, his character is meant to be, what did he say, the lapdog of the family. Yeah. So they did it well.
Oh my God. Okay. Should we go to scores?
Let's go to scores.
What do you got?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first. I usually go first, I feel like. You go first.
I actually didn't come in with a score in my mind. I'm going to give it a solid 5.
Okay, I'm only a little bit higher than you.
Oh, okay.
I'm at a 5.5.
Okay.
I think that
it's mid.
It is. It's but the show had so much more potential to be better than that. I know. And I thought there were points in it where I thought I was going to settle in at like a 7.5. But then they sort of take you on so many different directions that aren't strong points of the show that they kind of focus on, and I'm like, I wish they wouldn't do this right now. So I don't know. You got to read the book and you got to let me know.
I'll read the book and let everybody know. I mean, if you've read the book, let us know.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Did you read the book? Did you watch the show? How did it compare one versus the other? I think that I'm also curious what you guys think about all of these books getting such quick turnarounds. I mean, what's the other popular one? It ends with us. When did that book come out?
Oh my god.
I mean, that's not Liane Moriarty, but I know that like
the one with
Blake
Blake Lively?
is playing the lead character, yeah. And my girlfriend's probably watching this and yelling through the TV.
Okay,
about the actress.
2016.
Okay, so a little bit more time.
Longer,
A little bit more
time.
That's more respectable, I think, because it'll be 8 years or 9 years by the time the movie comes out. Because it's either coming out this year or next year. I forgot.
Yeah, I think they had a little bit of a stall, but I think 21 to 24 is.
And the show was announced in 23.
That's too fast.
Yeah,
they didn't give any room for the writers to actually work on the script and figure out how to deliver, and it shows.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround. But let us know also what you guys think about the sort of trend in adapting these novels very quickly to television or for film. Let us know what you thought of the performances. If you guys were a fan of the show, maybe there's something that you guys felt that we didn't. If you guys didn't like it, let us know in the comments why you guys thought that as well. You guys can also follow us on social media. We're at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, as well as TikTok, Facebook, and Threads. We're also at _Culture Wave Media and at Jersey's Finest Pod on Instagram as well. You guys can also please subscribe to us. We are Culture Wave. We have a lot of different podcasts coming for you guys. This is an example of the Cinema Wave podcast where we do some reviews. We also do some news tidbits. We have a game show coming soon called Real Drafters, so keep your eye out for that. A lot of other stuff we're working on, and let us know in the comments if there's anything specific you want us to review or you're curious about our thoughts about. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.